Welcome, students. This is Miss Tracy in Consumer Math, and we are in section 3.1, and we're going to talk about timekeeping today. Our objectives are to calculate the number of hours an employee worked in a day and to find the total hours worked in a week. Our vocabulary words include hourly wage, which is the amount an hourly employee is paid per hour, and overtime, which is the number of hours that are in excess of regular pay hours. That means if you have a typical hourly wage job, you're going to work 40 hours a week. That's 8 hours, 5 days a week. 8 times 5, that's 40 hours in a week. Once you exceed 40 hours, then you get paid time and a half, which is what the typical overtime rate is for any hours above 40 in a work week. So let's look at our first example problem, or our only example problem, I should say. We're going to verify Monday's times on James Robinson's timesheet. So let's go ahead and look at that. We're going to calculate or verify Monday's times on this timesheet for James Robinson. So if you look at the time he clocked in on Monday, it was 7:50 a.m. and then he clocked out for lunch at 12:03 p.m. So he went from 7:50, he worked from there until 12:03. So what we have to do is figure out how many hours and how many minutes are from one to the other. So the thing that I like to do is I like to go in hour increments. So I know that from 7:50 to 8:50 is 1 hour. So that's 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Now, this is as close as I can get. If I go to 12:50, I'll be past this. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, right? So I know that's going to equal 4 hours, but there's going to be some minutes left over. So I'm going to take the biggest hour that I can go to, which is 11:50, and I'm going to put that right here. And I'm going to subtract. The thing to remember when we subtract here is that we cannot use the base 10. We have to use base 60 because there are 60 minutes in an hour. So all that means is if I borrow from an hour and put it into my minutes, I'm going to borrow 60. So I can't take 50 from 3, so I'm going to turn this into 11. And I'm going to add 60 minutes here. So 60 plus 3 is 63. So that's my new time. 63 minus 50 is 13 minutes, and 11 minus 11 is 0. So it's 0 hours and 13 minutes. So I know I have 13 minutes. This is the total time frame from 7:50 to 12:03. 4 hours and 13 minutes. I'm going to do the same thing for his afternoon shift. He went from 12:58 to 5:18. So I'm going to start at 12:58, and then I'm going to go to 5:18. And I'm going to go in hour increments until I can't go past this, until the next one would go past this. So from 12:58 to 1:58 is 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. So 4 hours, if I go to 5:58, that's past this. So 4:58 is the maximum hours that I can go. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. So that equals 4 hours. And now I've got to find the minutes. So I'm going to subtract 4:58 from 5:18. Now I need to borrow, so I'm going to cross this out and make this a 4. And I'm going to take the 60 minutes that I borrowed from this 1 hour and add that here. 60 plus 18 is 78. So 78 minus 58 is 20 minutes. And 4 minus 4 is 0. This should always be 0 if you do it right, because we're looking for just minutes here. So 4 hours and 20 minutes is the amount of time in his second shift. So I'm just going to add these two together. So when I do that, 13 minutes and 20 minutes, when that gets added together, that's 33 minutes. 4 hours and 4 hours, that's 8 hours. So his shift on Monday, he worked a total of 8 hours and 33 minutes. And if we check our time for the day, that was 8 hours and 33 minutes. And because it was the first day of the week, the weekly total is 8 hours and 33 minutes. And if you look at this timesheet, you'll see that every time it gives them the total for the next day. This is the total for the day. This gets added to the previous week number. So 8 hours and 18 minutes gets added to 8 hours and 33 minutes, and that gives us a total of 16 hours and 51 minutes. Well, then the next day, on Wednesday, he worked 9 hours and 47 minutes, and that got added to 16 hours and 51 minutes, and that was 26 hours and 38 minutes. Notice on Thursday, he worked 3 shifts. He must have had a doctor's appointment or something. So he worked from 8:20 to 12, and then he came back from lunch and he worked from 1 to 2, and then he left for an hour and 10 minutes. He came back at 3:20, and then he got off work at 5, and he only worked 6 hours and 43 minutes. That 6 hours and 43 was added to his weekly total, and that brought him up to 33.21. So then on Friday, he worked a total of 9 hours, and that 9 hours was added to the 33.21, which gave him a total of 42 hours and 21 minutes. So remember what we talked about for overtime? He is going to get 40 hours at regular pay, but his overtime is 2:21. So he's going to get 2 hours and 21 minutes of overtime. So 40 hours at his base pay, whatever that is. Let's say he works at $10 an hour. Let's say that's how much he makes. This would be $400 because 40, it's not $40, it's 40 hours. 40 hours times $10 would equal $400. So that base pay for him is he's usually making $400 a week at 40 hours a week. Now at 2 hours and 21 minutes overtime, what we have to do is turn this into a decimal that reflects the base 10 system. That's going to be a whole other process, and we'll get into that in our next lesson. But for now, know that he is going to make time and a half of 2 hours and 21 minutes for next week. So let's do some calculations of hours and minutes in our Genopod, and then we'll get into lesson 3.2 tomorrow.